Hey there, this is Verena from Reward Your Dog Training, and today I'd like to talk to you about the topic of trigger stacking. You might have heard this and you might have wondered, what is trigger stacking and how does it impact me with my reactive dog? Well, hang on, because I'm going to talk about it. So what are triggers anyway? Triggers are things that activate your dog's nervous system and trigger what we call an over-threshold reaction. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. When you think about your dog's nervous system, you can think about it as a traffic light. Basically, your dog's nervous system, and your own as well, is made up out of two parts. I'm simplifying here, but we have the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest, so eating and resting, and a few other things, but those are the most important for us here, and the sympathetic nervous system, which is basically the fight, flight, freeze, and other panic response circuit. So in the green zone, your dog is more in their parasympathetic nervous system, so in their rest and digest state. They can do things like do tricks, learn new things, go on a sniffy walk, listen to you when you ask them to do something. And then in the red zone, your dog would be much more activated in their sympathetic nervous system, and they would be experiencing one of those over-threshold panic reactions. They would be barking, lunging, growling, snapping, and biting for fight. They might be running away or cowering for flight, or they might get super, super stiff and still for freeze. And freeze can sometimes then go into flight or fight. Freeze is a little complicated. And there's a couple of others, but for us, I think that's good enough here. And then the yellow zone that's in the middle between the two is kind of that ramping up towards fight or flight. So you might see your dog get more agitated, more distracted, less able to listen to you here, maybe even doing things like barking or growling. So that is how we'll be thinking about your dog's nervous system going forward. So now let's take a look at an example. So this is a dog who's on a walk. The walk is about 30 minutes long. This is the duration of the walk, maybe 35, 40 minutes long. And this is the dog's nervous system activation. The line you see here is when your dog, or when the dog here hits threshold. And anything that is above the line means the dog has one of those red zone reactions. And the line here discusses the dog's nervous system activation. So this dog is on a walk. The dog is reactive towards other dogs, and he sees a dog, dog one. He gets activated by that, but it's not enough to hit that over threshold line. The dog is in the yellow zone, but continues the walk, and over the next 10-15 minutes of walking, calms back down enough, almost to a normal state, so that he's in the green zone when he sees dog two. Dog two also activates him into the yellow zone, but then he walks another 10-15 minutes and he's able to calm down again and get kind of chill. Then he sees dog three, we have a little activation, and then calms back down again. So this dog is pretty mildly reactive. And when the dogs happen kind of at a big distance from each other, like here, 10-15 minutes apart, he can calm back down and that nervous system can relax and chill. Now, if you have a reactive dog, that might look very different for your dog. We can talk a little bit about recovery times later, but that is just what that dog's nervous system looks like here. Now, same dog, different walk. As you can see here, this is our 30-minute walk, but the dogs are much closer together and all the triggering happens in the first 10-15 minutes. So the dog sees dog one, gets activated, and is just starting to come back down when he sees dog two, and he's bounced in a higher state of activation, so higher up into yellow, and then is barely starting to calm down when dog three comes around that corner, and then he is bounced into that big over threshold state. Now we have the lunging, we have the barking, we have the growling, you name it. And then fortunately, this dog doesn't see any more dogs the rest of the walk and is starting to slowly calm back down and is more relaxed towards the end of the walk. So basically, what happens is that the stress hormones course around in the body for some time, and we'll talk a little bit about how long that might last, and there was just not enough time in between those stressful events, and that is why that over-threshold response happened. Now let's imagine all 3 dogs happen at the same time, kind of 5 minutes into the walk. So the dog's nervous system is bounced all the way up, too many dogs all at once, right? And stays there until the dog recovers. So these would be 3 examples of how triggers can work differently on the dog, and you can see that the response happens at different times. So here no response happens. Here the response only happens after the 3rd dog because they're close together, and here the response happens because all the stressors were happening at the same time. So those are really simple examples. I would like for you to consider that there are a lot of other things that can impact your dog's nervous system. And one thing to also think about is that some dogs are truly able to shake off a trigger within 10 to 15 minutes. Some dogs are not able to do that. So some dogs would go on that walk number 1, and dog number 1 might be enough to bounce them into the red zone. And maybe it takes them a long time to deactivate that nervous system back down. In fact, it might be a good time for this dog that I just described to actually stop the walk altogether, because it might be a couple of hours before they're back to normal. So other factors that can influence your dog's nervous system, in addition to, acute triggers, are things like underlying stressors. For example, if your dog has chronic pain or a health issue that's flaring up, that alone can act as an activator that's longer lasting and can make your dog less resilient. So if your dog is often, like reactive, but it's super random, and you're like, yesterday he was able to see that dog and was fine, and today he's not fine, it could be that there is something else going on that is an underlying factor that bounces your dog up further in that nervous system. Things like chronic stress and health and changes in the home could be culprits here, for example. As the very last thing, I want to talk a little bit about regulating your dog. So when your dog has a triggering event, they need to regulate back down. And by that I mean they need to come back down into that parasympathetic nervous system, into that rest and digest cycle, and chill the heck out. So here are some ways you can help your dog do that. So calming activities are great. That might look like giving your dog options to lick, such as a Kong, a Topple, a popsicle. To sniff, such as a nose work game or going on a sniffari in a place where you're not likely to see other triggers. Maybe a good long time to chew on a bully stick or some kind of safe chew that your dog likes and that is good for them. Some dogs also really enjoy gentle touch, like a light massage. Obviously ask for consent, ask your dog if they also find that enjoyable. But those are great activities here. Sometimes also just giving your dog enough time to recover before moving on. Let's say you're on a walk and you just had a reaction, or you notice your dog is bouncing up into that yellow zone. Take some time instead of going on into a new environment, and just give your dog some time to look around, kind of time to shake it off before you move on. And sometimes the recovery time is best done at home. Sometimes it's a good idea to finish up that walk, return for home, and recover on the sofa. Speaking of which, the ability to nap and sleep and rest after a big triggering event is really, really important as well. So creating like a calm, safe space for your dog to sleep in, super helpful. You can use relaxation protocols or biofeedback exercises here as well. We could talk about that another time, but that would be an example here. And for some dogs, if they're really activated, they actually need to move before they can relax and calm down. So they might enjoy some toy play, they might enjoy running around, a little bit of zooming. So often we see zoomies as a way to cope with stress. So zoomies aren't always cute for that reason. So I hate to break it to you. It's a little bit different with puppies. But even then, zoomies can mean like, oh my gosh, everything is so hard. So those are just a few examples of ways you can help your dog regulate that nervous system. And by regulating the nervous system, we mean going back down into the green zone and activating that parasympathetic nervous system and kind of helping that sympathetic nervous system to stop being so intense. So that is just a few remarks about the idea of trigger stacking. I hope that was helpful to you, and I hope that informs the way you handle your dog's triggers going forward. If you have any questions, please drop them right down there. All right, thanks so much and take good care.